following program contains content and language that some viewers may find instructive. Viewer attention is advised.
Hi, this is Bridge with Stephen for the list of 4 parts on the topic of hand evaluation. We're going to be considering high card points, length points, and shortness points. And we're going to define valuation points and then look at the point requirements for various games and slams. So let's begin with what is our purpose? What is our goal when we sit down to the bridge table? What are we trying to do? We're trying to communicate with our partner, and we're trying to reach an optimal contract. And to do that, we need to know what the strengths and weaknesses of our combined hands are and what they can do together. So we're bidding, and we're trying to convey information to our partner. We have to make the decision whether to bid or pass or double in some cases, and whether our hand is good enough to open. If it is good enough to open, should we open it at the 2 level or the 1 level? Or maybe perhaps, when I say 2 level, I was referring to weak twos, but maybe it's a strong 2-club hand. If right-hand opponent is opened, do we have a hand that's appropriate for overcalling? Do we have the strength? And again, we need a way to measure the strength of our hand so that we can make these decisions. Do we have enough strength to respond to partner's opening bid? And if so, which bid? First, we're going to consider, where do tricks come from? Well, unless it gets trumps, the highest card in the suit is going to win a trick. And high cards, aces, kings, and on down the line, are measured with what are called high card points. We also get tricks with the last cards in the suit. If everybody else has run out of that suit, we can continue taking tricks with the little cards. And for that, we award ourselves length points. We also manufacture tricks by trumping and dummy. And we call shortness points or dummy points by those names. When I say trumping and dummy, I want to emphasize to you that what I mean by dummy is the hand with the shorter piece of trump. So if we're in a 5-3 fit and there's a 3-card trump suit in dummy, even if it's in hand, it doesn't matter. If we can trump with one of those 3, we will manufacture a 6th trick, assuming we can take the other 5. We'll look at an example of that in a moment. And of course, finessing is where tricks come from, but that has nothing to do with hand evaluation. Now let's begin with high card points. This is the system we've all been taught. Aces are worth 4, kings are worth 3, queens are worth 2, jacks are worth 1, and 10s are generally not assigned any value at all. Bridge theorists and experts through the decades have instructed us that this isn't really reflective of the relative strengths of those cards. This card is not exactly twice as strong as this card, even though this card gets, this ace gets 4 points and the queen gets 2 points. So there are modified versions of this 4-3-2-1 system that we wanted to spend a moment looking at. We're not going to actually use them. They're too cumbersome. Here's one that awards an ace 4.3. It's a little bit more than the 4 that the old Gordon system assigns. Kings are a little bit stronger than 3 here too. They're 3.1. But queens fall below 2 to 1.8. Jacks fall below 1 to 0.8. And 10s are awarded almost a half a point, 0.4. So by this reckoning, somebody thinks this is the relative strength of these cards. Now, obviously, we can't use those kind of numbers at the table, because if we assign these kind of points to our hands, we'd have to do things like say 1 no trump. Instead of 15 to 17, that shows 15.3 to 17.8. That's just not reasonable. Here's another way of looking at the relative strengths of these cards. Give the ace 6, the king 4, the queen 2, the jack 1, and the 10 0. Notice in this formulation, the king is worth double the queen, whereas in this one, the ace is worth double the queen. Which of those is more accurate? Well, I think you're going to have to choose yourself. In the end, we're going to go back to this system, but we're going to make modifications to account for these differences. And here's just one more that I found somewhere. 6.5, 4.5, 2.5, 1, and 0. Now here are some of those modifications. Because aces and kings, which are sometimes called primary honors, are undervalued in the 4-3-2-1 system, they really are worth a little bit more than 4 and 3. Hands that are aceless, don't have an ace in them, we should deduct a point for that. If the strength of our hand is mostly in kings, queens, and jacks, especially queens and jacks, that hand's just not as good as if it had aces and kings for the same number of points. So for acelessness, let's deduct a point. Let's also give ourselves an extra point for the trump queen. If queens are worth 2, the trump queen's going to be worth 3. That's a queen that's always useful. Okay, let's say spades is our trump suit. Who knows what the queen of diamonds will do for us, or the queen of clubs? But we do know the queen of spades will be a valuable card. And we're not going to count that queen the same as the other queens. We're going to give ourselves an extra point for the trump queen. And finally, we should probably give ourselves a half a point for tens. If your hand is rich in tens, it's a better hand than one that isn't. Okay, so that's hard card points. Now let's look at length points. We give ourselves an extra point for the fifth card in a suit. We'll add one for that. If we have a 6-card suit, we'll add 2. And if we have a 7-card suit, we'll add 3. Now the other side of that is this flat hand. We want to deduct a point for that. This hand has no roughing value and no running suits. So it's just not as good as a hand with a 5 or a 6-card suit in it, or a hand with a 1 or a 2-card suit in it. We're also going to give ourselves an extra point for the 9 trump, and one more for each one thereafter. So if we have a 5-4 fit like this, partner's opened a heart with this suit, and you have 4 of them, give yourself an extra point for that 9th trump. The reason for that is that a lot of things become possible when you have a 9-card trump suit that aren't as easy or aren't possible at all with an 8-card trump suit. For example, it's not unusual with a 9-card trump suit to pull trump and have 1 or 2 trump still left in dummy when you're done. That makes certain kinds of end plays possible and opens up other avenues of possibility. And one last thing to say about this idea, 2 suitors are undervalued in this system here. If we give ourselves an extra point for a 5-card suit and 2 extra points for a 6-card suit, we're going to give ourselves 1 extra point for each of these 5-card suits and 2 extra points for this 6-card suit. But they're not equal. A 5-5-2-1 hand has better shape than 6-3-2-2. So this is one place where the point count system might not accurately reflect the relative strength of hands. Now we're going to consider shortness points, which are sometimes also called dummy points. And we're going to give ourselves 1 point for a 2-card suit, a doubleton, 3 points for a 1-card suit, and 5 points for a void, a 0-card suit, but only once a fit has been found. Obviously, a void in partner suit is not so good, and a void in no trump is not so good. So let's ask ourselves for a moment, how helpful are voids? Well, we talked about voids and dummy. This is the suit I was thinking of when I was discussing that. This suit will produce 5 tricks. Ace, King, Queen, Jack, 10. And I'll follow 3 times under the Ace, King, Queen, and then take the Jack, 10. If I can trump with one of these cards, I'll get a 6th trick in that suit. If I have to trump with one of these cards, that doesn't increase my trick count. I won't get a 6th trick if I have to trump with one of these, only if I can trump with one of these. So short suits in dummy are very valuable. They produce tricks. But the short suits can also be liabilities. Consider this hand. Let's call this spades. This is declarer here with King, Queen, Jack, 10, 5th of spades, opposite 8, 7, 6. And he's got the singleton ace to his left and 4 small to his right. Now, let's say these are spades again. And left-hand opponent has opened the bidding with 3 hearts. And we're voiding hearts. Okay, is that going to be a good thing for us? Well, in a sense it is. We can stop the hearts. But the opening lead will be a heart, probably, and we'll have to rough. Now we're down to 4 trump. Now if we go to try to pull trump, our left-hand opponent's going to get back in with the ace, and we'll probably lead another heart. At that point, we've roughed twice, and we're down to 3 trump in this hand, 3 trump in this hand. We've lost control of the trump suit in a sense. Our right-hand opponent actually has more trump than we do now. In that case, the void was a little bit of a liability. It would have been much better to win that opening lead with the ace of hearts if we had it. In no trump, as I mentioned, voids are never a help. How can they be? You can't possibly win a trick with a void in no trump. Now let's look at a few other situations where shortness might be a liability rather than an asset. Suppose you have a suit that's queen doubleton. That queen might not be as valuable as a queen that's protected, a queen third, or a singleton king. Those cards, what are their values? Is a singleton king better than a singleton 3? Yes, it is. But how much better? That depends. If partner doesn't have either the ace or the queen, it's no better. Okay, suppose you hold king X and partner holds the singleton ace, and declarer leads low in that suit. Do you have the nerve, not seeing the ace, to not go up with your king? Well, if you do go up with your king, partner has a singleton here. Partner's shortness is a liability. your shortness actually is liability too, because if you had a third card in that suit, you would have easily ducked. But if you go up with this king, it's going to be covered by partner's ace. So you got a little bit of a problem here. And here's another place where there might be a slight problem with shortness. I have a singleton ace here opposite king, queen, jack, 10, 2. Not a huge problem, but if I want to run this suit, I'm going to have to get from this hand to this hand in another suit. Had I had a small card here, I could have led the ace and then small to the king, queen, jack and run the suit. And I have a similar problem here. Suppose I put down a singleton ace and dummy, and I'm holding this in hand. Well, the opponents can see you're not going to be able to convince anybody to put their king up to cover your queen if you lead it, because they can see your singleton ace. That becomes a liability for you, and they just simply duck, you win your ace, and they get their king. Okay, so those are places where shortness points shortness might not be an asset. I wanted to define another term for you here, valuation points. This is going to be the sum of the high card points and the distribution points, whether those be the long length points or the shortness points. You've probably heard that we generally, when we're evaluating a hand, until we find a fit, we don't count shortness points. We only count length points and high card points. So our initial bidding the valuation points will be the high card points and the distribution points will be the length points. Once we find a fit, we can switch over to the shortness points and give ourselves the 1 point for the doubleton, 3 points for the singleton, etc. And then the last thing we're going to talk about here is the point requirements for various levels of contracts. These mostly represent relatively balanced hands. When hands have a lot of shape, long suits and short suits, these numbers kind of go out the window a little bit. But for the typical hand, game in a major, we like to have 26 valuation points and 29 valuation points for game in a minor, whereas a no trump of about 25 is usually adequate. For a small slam, we want 33 valuation points. If it's in a suit, 33 high card points if it's a no trump. And for grand slam, 37 and 37. These numbers probably derive from the idea that if you hold 33 high card points, you can't be missing 2 aces. So small slam at least has a chance. And here with 37 high card points, and this should say high card points here, we can't be missing even 1 ace. So that's it for today.